is episode 21.
21.
21's pretty significant in the world of podcasting. And we will dive into that and we'll tell you why that's significant. Most people don't actually make it this far, but welcome to Authentic Hustle. I've got VJ and Kelly. Love being co-hosting with these guys. They're amazing people, and I have the advantage of conversing with them, all the other days of the week when we're not on here. So amazing friendships, amazing partnership. It's just a whole lot of fun. So welcome, and Kelly, why don't you tell us what we're going to do today?
Amazing. Well, okay. So I feel like there's a bit of a theme going on in the world right now. There's a lot of people looking to start podcasts in 2025, right? Me and VJ have had a podcast for a long time. I'm actually celebrating my 250th episode this Sunday, which is crazy.
Amazing.
Absolutely crazy. It's funny. I did a show, my show today, I should say. My show that released today is the start of my podcast playbook series where over the years, hundreds and hundreds of people have reached out to me and said, Kelly, can you help me launch my show? You've been doing this a long time. And man, I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to give the roadmap because honestly, it's a learning experience. I would say, and VJ, you can attest to this, I would say that I'm still learning how to podcast, even at 250 episodes, man. Like, I'm still learning. I am by no means like a pro, but I know enough to be dangerous. And so I decided, you know what? And sorry, I guess I shouldn't say that I just decided. It was actually when I was writing out my show plan list for 2025, halfway through the year, I had started putting notes in to say, this is it. This is the point where we do podcast playbook. And it's going to be a multi-part series. I think it could be as much as 10 parts to do podcast playbook correctly, to hit on every aspect of starting a show. But I want to be able to create a roadmap for people that if they wanted to start a show, from picking the title of your show all the way to producing your first, let's call it 21 or 50 episodes, I want to give them the roadmap on how to do so. So I'm going to do my best with that. Today's episode 249 is part 1 of Podcast Playbook. But I thought, because it's just weird. It's weird how synchronicity happens, right? When I wrote that down, Authentic Hustle wasn't even on my mind yet. Like it was, right, but like as a line item on a goals list for 2025, right? Yeah. I could have never imagined that it would coincide perfectly with our 21st episode of Authentic Hustle. Can we say like synergy, the universe, or synchronicity? I don't know. Serendipity might be the right word there. But it is just so crazy how sometimes things happen that way, isn't it?
Yeah. No, Kelly, like my brain is not working as fast as it should. So I slept at 5:30 in the morning, but I was just like paying attention in 250 episodes. Wow. Unreal, actually. I mean, like, when you first interviewed me and like we had a conversation, like I never thought about podcasting as a platform, as a profession, or anything like that. But the only reason I was really hooked by podcasts is about the conversations, because and the people and the stories and the journeys that people bring, right? So that kind of like motivated me to do more. I was not looking at the dollar incentive or anything like that as a motivation initially or anything like that. But man, because these conversations are nowhere to be found. Whatever the kind of conversation that you're having on a podcast are nowhere to be found. So there was a reason I was watching Joe Rogan and then Colin mocks at me sometimes. But like there is the reason we watch Joe Rogan and others, right? And so yeah, I love the conversations. I think that hooked me. And Kelly, you know it already. I've said it a lot, and you're a big time motivator for me to even like start something like Pathfinders, man. So all kudos to you. I think the motivation came from you. I can really tell. Yeah.
No, man, I appreciate that greatly, man. Like it's been cool, and I've actually had the pleasure of helping a lot of people launch podcasts, not necessarily intentionally. Like that was never what I set out to do, but it's funny, and I'm sure you find it now too, is that people reach out to you. They see Pathfinders, they see the great job you do there, and they're like, hey, I want to do this, right? And I feel like this episode has to start in a very specific way. So Mr. Colin Harms, right here in this room on May 9th of 2023. Now listen, May 9th of 2023 was my 21st episode of the Business Development Podcast. And Colin Harms, the same gentleman in this room, we did not know each other at this point. This is what's crazy and the power of podcasting. We did not know each other on this point. We'd had a couple conversations on LinkedIn, but he just reached out, found your show at episode 6. Absolutely love it. By the way, I need to show you something. And this is what he showed me.
Let's watch.
So this clip is from Chris Williamson.
Whenever I get to a low point where I think, why do I even bother? I just remind myself, this is where most people stop. And this is why they don't win. And this relates to another one, which is a reminder for the gladiators in the arena who feel beat up and scarred with no hope in sight. Building a business is hard. Hard feels shitty. This is what hard feels like. And this is why most people can't do it, but you can. I use this stat all the time. 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And of the 90%, the 10% that do, 90% don't make it past episode 20. So by making 21 podcasts, you're in the top percentile of all podcasters ever in history. That's what hard feels like. And that's not even hard, it's just consistent. Fuck me. It's less than hard.
Yeah.
Insane.
And that episode, that message came at such a critical point in my podcast journey. And I think what's really important to speak to about that, Colin, was at that point, I was questioning why I was doing it. At that point, I was questioning, because the reality is building a podcast is freaking hard. I am not going to sugarcoat it. Doing one episode isn't hard. Doing 5 episodes, probably not that hard. But showing up every single week, like we do here on Authentic Hustle, like VJ does with Pathfinders, like I do with the Business Development Podcast, it's not the single episode that's hard. It's showing up even when it's shitty.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for whatever reason that I saw that TikTok that day, or when I didn't, why I saved it. I wasn't quite sure why I saved it, but like you said, serendipity or whatever you want to call it, right? God, the universe. I believe in my life, God puts things in place for a reason. When I pick them up, sometimes too late. Hopefully not always, but that happens, and then I feel compelled to send that to people. Right? Whatever it may be, I'm sending videos all the time, and not to change somebody, but just to lift them up more than anything else. And that's why, Kelly, we didn't even know each other. And I just felt like sending it to you.
Yeah.
But I look at like you were, the prelude into why somebody does a podcast or the Pathfinders or the BDP. I think the most successful podcasts are when you live it. Right? When the podcaster actually lives it, he's not acting it, he's not trying to be it, he actually lives it, is when it becomes successful. And that's what I think people get drawn to. And when I'm drawn to one, or I'm flipping through and I'm trying to listen, find something that, I would call my sound, that's what happens. Right? So VJ, like with Pathfinders, right? And I listen to them and I watch them, and I got to give you this. You are one of the most exciting podcasters. Like when you're interviewing, you are easily, like, you pull the best out of people. You really do, and it's amazing to watch. And like you genuinely are having a great time doing the podcast. And I think that's the difference. Yeah. If it was a struggle for you, it wouldn't be fun. I think you would be trying to dig up more information or trying to, we've all been in that position where we try to make the circumstance better than it is, maybe. And you are VJ Rogan. Like, you're laid back and you're sharing the conversation. You're sharing freely, but you're allowing the other person to speak. That's what makes a great podcast. That's what makes a great conversation. Everybody loves to follow a great conversation. And Kelly, the same there. When I started to follow it and not realizing you had just started, I'm like, holy, this is mind blowing. And Kelly's thinking, I'm being mind blown myself. Like, I don't know if I can go on.
Yeah.
But when you're speaking from the heart and when you're doing it for the right reason, that's when the results come.
Yeah. And I feel like, just in addition to that, like, unless you're Joe Rogan, a podcast is never going to make you rich. And so I think you have to look at it from the other standpoint of, do you find joy in it? I really think you have to enjoy it. It's the only way to have long-term success, right? People say when they listen to my show that like, I just love your energy. You show up with so much energy. And that's because I found a passion for podcasting, not necessarily for like the results I get from it. Yeah, it's been incredible. Like from like a personal brand building thing, from a thought leadership place, it's been absolutely incredible. But that alone isn't enough. You have to really, really want to do it. And I think like, let's talk to Authentic Hustle, right? I look forward to seeing VJ and Colin every single week. This isn't for me about this show. It's about being able to hang out with two peers who I respect deeply and absolutely love to hang out with. That is what brings me back to this week over week over week.
Yeah, yeah. No, I did do all of that. And when I first saw Colin, I don't know how I didn't even know how I reached out to you, Colin. But it's kind of happened. Maybe you were on Kelly's show. I could be wrong, but right, you were on Kelly's show. Then I reached out and we had our conversation and our podcast. Leave the podcast alone. Even our first ever interaction, I loved it. And one thing I made a promise to myself, like coming after the corporate career, is just be authentic. I mean, just be genuine and connect with people. Like, doesn't matter who they are, what they're doing, and where they come from. Nothing matters because, talk to them genuinely, be authentic, and see what you can do. If you can help, it's great. I don't think I've figured everything out. No, but that's all I do. That's the only thing I try and do. That's it. And people seem to respond to that because it seems to be also missing in society right. So that's how I feel. And today are we interviewing Colin, and what's the format, Kelly?
Yes,
Sorry.
That is where we're going with this. And I want to get right into that because this is very special for Colin, right? Like me and you have both celebrated our 21st episode many episodes ago. This is Colin's very first 21st episode, and it's absolutely incredible to be able to come full circle and literally show him the same video he showed me at my 21st episode and be able to do that. Like, I have to say, that's a universe moment, Colin.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I love, I don't remember the doctor's name that you had on. He talked about serendipity.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, I've reached out to him as well and had some conversations, which have been really good. But the same thing is, the evolution, I guess, of a podcast or podcasting, that type of thing. Where do you go from there? Why would somebody want to listen? More so, can we have a conversation that we want to listen to?
Yeah.
Right? And that's the big one, like hitting 21 and knowing those numbers. And then I listened to the podcast this morning. You're on the playbook, right? The podcast playbook, episode 1. And I'm like, okay, here's where we're at, right? Like if I went into a Blue Sky podcast and went down that road, but it has to be authentic. It has to be something that I want to do. Like I listened to a little bit in fear of what the commitment is, how much time it is to produce it, how much time, like you don't want to just throw it out there and go, oh, I hope this reaches somebody, right? You want to do it professionally. You want to do it with quality, and a little bit of fear, in my mind when I was, first of all, it pops up, I'm at the gym and, it's 5:15 or whatever. And VJ messages and says, hey guys, I'm just going to bed. I worked all night. And, and I'm like, I just woke up.
No, it's not every day. It's not every day. It happened to be today. That's it. Yeah.
But I thought, what passion, right? And I understand you're working in different continents even, right? And the reason that you have to be awake in the middle of the night, not because you just can't sleep. It's because you're actually working. But it all comes through to that authenticity, right? And that's where I want to be. And even in a sales aspect, if you're dealing with somebody or doing something, you just want an authentic transaction, I guess, if you will, right? We don't want to feel like things are fake. We don't want to feel like we're being snowed over, the fleecing of America type thing. So that's when, when we get into the podcast, even today, what are we going to talk about? We make it random. We spin the wheel, that type of thing. It still has to be authentic. It still has to be real answers, not answers we think people want to hear
Yeah.
or conversations we think people want to hear. That's where I think VJ was telling Kelly earlier. I read a statistic. More people are watching podcasts for the daily news than they're watching the news.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
In Kelly's response to that was because they don't want anything censored, right? They want the real raw notes, and that's what authentic is. So I think if you can keep bringing authenticity to whatever you do, every conversation you have, just be real. I think your relationships will be better. I think your days will actually be better.
Yeah.
Right? You'll go to sleep at night feeling better about yourself even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I guess ultimately a podcast is something that's deeply personal, right? It has to be a deeply personal choice. And the reason being, like I said, the monetary aspect of podcasting, yeah, maybe you get that show that gets, 1 million downloads and suddenly you got sponsors knocking at your door. But that hasn't been my experience. It hasn't been an easy thing to get help with the show. And I have to thank Colin, because Colin has been with me from day go. He has, stepped up and sponsored my show for a number of years now. And it has helped tremendously, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy to get people to help you with your journey. And so like, you are exceptional in that way, Colin. And I have to thank you deeply. And once again, it's like, it's cool because you've just been there. Like the podcast is the reason we even know each other on the level that we do.
Yeah.
Right. And same with VJ. Like the podcast is the reason that I know you as well as I do. I'm not sure that we would have like all of us would have crossed paths without them.
No, probably
Yeah.
not.
Oh my goodness! Like I can't even think of list of people, Kelly, that I've known doing a podcast. And you, of course, we met. Colin, I'm yet to meet you. I'm sure I'll meet you soon. So many people in Edmonton. Like I said, when I came to the city, I knew nobody. Right. And and the kind of people send messages introducing other people. It happens nonstop. At least it happens week on week. Right. So, and I think, I don't know. I mean, it's not about visibility, exposure, or anything like that. The more I think about it, even Joe Rogan for a long time, he didn't have a monetization or anything for almost 8 or 10 years. He was just having a good time with his buddies and interesting guests and whatnot. That is what it is. Podcast has gone to be different format now. I only wish for the podcast always has its soul for all podcasts out there across the world, right? It continues to have the soul and it doesn't get as commercialized like the mainstream media has. So I only wish that for the podcasting business as a whole. But it's a fantastic way to communicate from your living room or your studio, wherever you are, and whatever your raw thoughts are could be right, could be wrong, because people make mistakes also. They don't have to be on the pressure. Oh, you have to be always right. Yeah, I could be wrong. So, I mean, guys, whoever is doing it, just I mean, the only thing I'm learning is just be raw and authentic. And I mean, you don't have to offend anyone, but at the same time, just if you can share your thoughts and if it's meaningful, that's pretty much it. That's what people are looking for in a conversation, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And I have to just point at this hat I'm wearing today. And this
is a beautiful hat. Yeah.
This is a care package from Mr. Colin Harms. And Colin's thing is I did. And it was funny because the very first interview I had with him, that's what we talked about. Say I did with Colin Harms, right? You don't want to get to the end of your life and say I didn't do it. And for me, a podcast is about making a massive impact in the world, Colin, and being able to look back and say, yeah, I did something with my life. I didn't waste my life. I changed the world. And it's pretty cool because with 250 episodes of the BDP, we literally have changed the world. And, it's amazing the power of that. But, there's a reason I'm wearing the I Did hat today. It's not just to, support an incredible friend, but it's also for the fact that I did is powerful, right? Being able to say I did something, everybody needs to be able to say that at the end of their life.
Yeah, and that's, I'll even touch on that is where it came from, if somebody doesn't know, and obviously most don't, is, I was just going down the road of trying to build a brand and what would I do and always be supportive, and how do you get to the end of the day and make sure you've got something done and, more completion. And it came to me that one of the most powerful brands or slogans in the world is just do it, right? Nike said, just do it. And then, the second most powerful one was, competing with Under Armour, and they said, I will, right? So think about it. Nike says, just do it. Under Armour says, well, okay, I will. Well, then I said, I did. Which one wins? I did, right? The person that did something, and it doesn't really matter who you are, what your vocation is, or whatever it is. Everybody wakes up, and at the end of the day, did you do what you say you're going to do? Did you go where you're saying you're going to go, right? So, as you guys challenge me to start a Blue Sky podcast, it's closer. I've been writing notes and building it and that type of thing. And the number one thing that I really think about is we need to document the journey, not just the wins, right? And as I've been pulled away from the 10X, the, grind, that type of thing, I think that's what's missing in that, where people are, 10X, 10X, 10X. You got to 10X everything. You got to 10X everything. Grind, right? Your family will be there when you get home. They'll be happy if you get home with more money. That's not necessarily true. I think what the world needs and wants is to see the journey. They want to know that their lives are real.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody lives in the win column.
Yeah.
Right? We chalk up the wins. Absolutely, we do. The I dids, right? The I dids are the wins. But I think that's it. Document your journey, not just your wins. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to hear them. And that's what I love about the podcast that I listen to is that's the journey.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless of who it is, they're talking about the journey, and, the experience is in the journey, and that's all we can live from.
Well, I would love for you to speak to your journey, and the reason being, I have like a unique bird's eye view of you, and you of me, right? Like we just have that. We're very close.
Yeah.
I'm honored and privileged to have you as a friend, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. But I've been coaxing you to start your own show. I want to say from like our first month of knowing each other, right?
Since episode 21.
Yeah. Like I want to say like really that far back, right? We're talking years now in the making of having this show, Authentic Hustle, right? With you and me. And it's funny because it took a while for it to come along. And I'd love for you to maybe chat about that journey. What has, podcasters, you literally hang out, like we're friends, like you hang out with us. What was it that held you back, and why now? Why is now the time to do, the Blue Sky podcast?
Sure. I think the number one thing that holds me back or has held me back is the fear that nobody will want to listen. Right? If I'm in a room and it's one-on-one, no problem. Right? If the other person doesn't want to listen, they just get up and walk out.
Yeah.
Right? That's never happened. But I think where I know it's out there, right? Maybe one person would listen, maybe 100 people would listen, but it's the fear of what will I say? What if I say it wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What if I slip up? But that's the journey, right? That's the journey.
Yeah.
And then I think until I started to take a lot of what I learned from the BDP has been instrumental in my life. Pathfinders is awesome because I just love seeing this diverse group of people from all over the world, literally, tell their story, their journey. And I live those things, right? If I listen to somebody's journey, I kind of start living those things, right? It's like you see something and you're like, oh yeah, I know this. Right? You learn from, I think we can take experience from somebody else and live it ourselves, right? Because we kind of know that's what it is. That's how you get better at what you do, if that makes sense. So then, as time went on, and you're very encouraging for sure by sending me, oh, here's a mic. here's, I'm like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's a light.
It's been subtle.
And I'm like, okay, now how do I do it? But then I listen to, how do you start a podcast? What do you do? What are the stages? How do you make it successful? Because I don't want to do something half-baked, if you will, right? I want to do it properly. And that's the fear. If I launch it, right, then I also have to follow up. I need, I don't want to just do it. I don't want the I will, I need the I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you guys know, I purchased some equipment this week.
Yeah.
And it arrived, and I sent you guys a picture. But because it was an I did moment, right? And so now I know I'm at that point. Now I'm learning it. The launch will come, but I just think for me, I won't say for most people, but for people, we live waking up with a fear of something.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what slows us down. That's where you start walking through the mud. You start walking slower. We want to get there, but we just don't quite get there. So,
VJ, do you have something to add to that? Oh, you're muted, my friend.
I'm sorry. No, I just had this question, and I was reading this author from a long time. I mean, Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've heard about him. He's a very popular author from a long time. I mean, like, one of the reasons I'm here is also probably because of his motivation, right? I mean, like, he's a fantastic author. I think he writes sincerely. And in one of the book I was reading recently, Colin, was Mega Living, and it said, like, remember, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. Something I bookmarked it, and I underlined it and kept it.
Yeah, that's
I just want to bring it back, and I'm just lucky that, like, you were my episode 17. Colin was my episode 17, Kelly. I'm glad I could do that. So, Colin, what was it like? Like, what was your life of purpose, and, like, what it led you to do? I mean, like, I know I'm so excited for you to launch the show, but overall, like, what was your life of purpose? Like, probably like 10, 20 years, 30 years ago.
you know, and I think my biggest thing was I grew up in a home where my parents are very encouraging. Just kind of like, hey, whatever you want to do it. And if that's not working out, go do something different, right? They never instilled a failure mentality, like one and done. It was always like, okay, pick yourself up and go do something different. And I think coming from a home where, you know, the encouragement is there, they're your biggest cheerleaders was probably what it was. And I've been fortunate, and I'll say it, I may be different than some people, but the reason I put belief in people is because people have always believed in me. There's always been, it seems like there's always been, not that I didn't work, I worked hard. And I, you know, my wife always tells me, like, you don't realize how hard you work, or you just don't think it's work, but you're constantly just working.
Yeah.
Well, I love it, like, what I do.
Right.
But I honestly believe the more I can give other people, the more comes back to me. And that's what's happened. Right?
The reason that you are going to be insanely successful as a podcaster is that you make everybody feel good. You really do, man. And I'm not pumping your tires. Like, you go out of your way to help people, to lift them up, to encourage them. And you know what I mean? You do that to people you don't even know. Like, and for the things you do for people you do know is absolutely next level. That as just a trait makes you an exceptional human being and will make you an exceptional podcaster.
And you know what?
Instant family. Sorry, Colin, you have to say it. You're instant family. So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Jory's been on Kelly's podcast a few times, and that's what he said to me is he nicknamed me Instant Family. He just said you go in a room and he becomes instant family. And you know what? I was at a chamber meeting last night, and I was telling Kelly that's I guess my inauguration. I'm on the board of directors for Chamber of Commerce in Lethbridge. And so last night we had a dinner, and so I was sitting at a table, and I wasn't sure. I just came in, said my name, and they sat me down. So very good. I was sitting with the mayor of Lethbridge, and then one of the Alberta ministers from the government. There's a couple other people there, and just the conversation, like, and I think, like, I try to steer a conversation. Like, I don't mean I go there with that intention. But if it's going, hey, let's have a good conversation, and I try to bring every single person at that table into the conversation, right? And then I'll just sit back, you know, and get a little bit quiet, and then chime in when it's the right time. And you know what? It was weird. It was like 10 minutes in, and I felt it was kind of that instant family moment, right? Like we were all into it, and there was a lady sitting at the table, and apparently she's a past president of the chamber, and I'd never met her. Been here my whole life. She's been a Lethbridge her whole life, And it was interesting because she just goes, I don't know how I've gone my whole life and I've never met you. And I said, well, I don't know how I've gone my whole life and I've never met you. Right? Like we obviously in the same rooms, in the same circles for a lot of it. But at the end of it, you know, we all shook hands and just, it was just a really good time and it felt good. But I think because the conversation was so good. Right. And then very, very monumental. The lady who's the new chairperson, she's Indigenous, and she gave a speech. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. She said she grew up not wanting to put her last name on a resume, right? Or even registering for anything because she thought she would be discriminated against.
Mm.
And so she's the first Indigenous chairperson for the Chamber of Commerce in Lethbridge in its history. Right. And so then, you know, I'd met her and it was just, it's things like that where people are being authentic. People are being real in the conversation around the table. Like you go there for a reason and yeah, it's a networking event and you meet people. But when you leave, you're like, holy, that was a fantastic evening. And, you know, it was about 2.5 hours. It was in, out, done. And you know, at the end of it, I went home and I told my wife, I just said, you know what, I think I'm going to really like that being on the board.
Yeah.
And I was on that board. I don't know. I was early 20s. Somehow I got on the board of the Chamber of Commerce and I was out of my element. I had zero idea. I had no idea. I didn't know how to talk to people, you know. The other part is, you know, let's talk instant family. How I feel somebody can become instant family if you're in an environment with people or networking or whatever, just don't ask them what they do. Please do not ask them, hey, VJ, what do you do? Well, who cares? how about who are you? Right? Like go past that crazy non-required question and go deeper. Right? Like, who are you? Where are you from? What, you know, what do you like to do? That's even better. What do you like to do?
You ask business owners what they like to do. They like to work.
Yeah.
That's what my wife would say. What does Colin like to do? Work. Oh.
Yeah. Honestly, I find myself on the weekend sometimes like going a little bit crazy when I'm done everything for the week because I just start to get anxious about all the stuff I have to do the next week. That it makes it hard to enjoy the weekend. It's funny. I'll be like, okay, I got to go mow the lawn and listen to a podcast and settle down.
but you know what? The thing is, why you become successful at it because you live it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you own a restaurant and you work 18 hours a day and you're never at home. You're never with people. You're always around people. Right. You're talking to people all day long. So what are you going to do on the weekend? You can't just turn the light off. It's not like I'm going to turn that room off.
Yeah.
Right. But as long as your family or the people around you are a part of it, who cares? Just keep working.
Yeah.
Right. Or make them a part of it. I think I told you guys, my daughter started her new job, went to university for 6 years. I think she worked about 8 hours. And then she texted me and said, hey, Dad, I just want to let you know, I'm just like you. I've known this since I was a little kid. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm just not sure I could do this for the rest of my life. I'm like, you've worked one shift. And you went to university for 6 years. You might want to give it a go. But I'll never tell her. It was unless she's listening today. It was a proud moment for me. I'm like, okay, that to me, that's exciting. Because to me, what that meant to me was she never once looked at me like, oh, my dad, all he ever does is work, or, you know, because I'm not going to say it's a grind, right? It's an effort. It's a huge effort, but I love doing it. So when my kids can say, I want to be like you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We have to stop. I have a moment on this. Okay. Yeah. I want to say 2 days ago, my youngest came by, Colin. He walked by Manon. He walked by her table. Not my youngest, but my youngest of the bigger boys. He walks by and he goes, Dad, thank you so much for working so hard. And then I forget, there was something like, it was just like a weird acknowledgement that they are paying attention. And I think it's really like important as parents to remember your kids are watching you. And it's like, you forget about it all the time, right? But every once in a while, like they'll just come by. I think I was writing my show notes. That's what I was doing. I was writing my show plan, Colin. And Manon just walks by and he goes, Dad, you work so hard. Thank you so much for working so hard for us. And it was, man, it was powerful in that moment. And then it wasn't like that long after that we were talking about what you want to do when you grow up. And he goes, I want to be just like you. It's such a powerful moment, right? And it's like
Little
because you don't see what people, even the people right in your immediate facility or vicinity, are thinking about you, right? It's like in the grind as an entrepreneur, as a podcaster, you're just working,
Yeah.
trying to make something happen. But on the outside, people are seeing you. They're seeing what you're doing. And especially as a parent, I can't think of like a more powerful thing than have somebody, or, you know, your kid look at you and say, like, I see you. I see
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And they promote it, right?
Yeah.
They're your promoter. They're
Yeah.
your cheerleader, right? Like if your family and your instant family can be your biggest cheerleaders, you have no choice but to win.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're going to be there. They are the journey, right? They are the journey. So they're going to be there for the win. And one thing I remember, I know we're running over time here, I'll be quick, is, you know, in real estate or whatever it is, it's run out. And I had an ATM business where I actually filled my own ATMs, did that, brought the kids, you know, they wouldn't be with me. And I'm like, you guys, this is probably not the best idea. You guys are my bodyguards. You know, they're like 8. You stand behind me, act like I'm not doing anything with this bag of money.
Yeah.
And I used to tell them, I make a quarter a transaction, right? And they had no idea what that was. And I said, so I got to do a whole lot of transactions
Yeah.
to make money. But every time, you know, I would equate it to, we have a good lifestyle, right? They get to go camping. They've gone to Disneyland a bunch of times. And it's not about that. But if those rewards weren't there, they would look at it like all he's ever doing is working. All he's ever doing is working. Now I just have to go there. Now I just have to go here.
Yeah.
They were always along for the journey, and they still are, right?
Yes,
And now
they are. Yeah.
both of them, right? One of them, her boyfriend works for me in real estate and with me, and the other one is constantly calling me about different businesses and would this be good? Could he get my insight on this? And it's not that I have all the answers, but I love digging into it with them.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole point of that is if we make the people around us part of what we're doing and become part of what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the win in the journey for sure.
Yeah, I love the fact that you talked about how, like, it's critical, like they're on the journey with us, and it's easy to forget that as entrepreneurs, right? Like, you know, I mean, I'm still pretty early stage entrepreneur. I'm celebrating 5 years this year, which is pretty incredible. I'm excited about that. I made it, but it's been hard, and it has not been an easy path, and the financial reward hasn't really happened yet. Not at the level that I ever hoped it would be. Like, we're not going to Disneyland, I can tell you that, right? But I hope to God that is what happens, because I want that to be the reward, because they're on the journey with us, and I don't want them to just suffer through my entrepreneurship dreams without the reward too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a true
VJ,
Yeah.
why don't you wrap it up?
Yeah, no. Week after week, you guys like stir me up. So I'm not gonna get emotional today, but at the same time, I have to give a huge shout out to my family, and I don't think I'll be here without them.
Yeah.
My wife, Grace, and she does a fantastic job of. Oh my goodness. I mean, like, we've lived in so many cities, moved countries, to be honest, and
Yeah.
it is not possible without her. And shout out to my son. His name is Ryan, and like, he made this like Zadwell logo on Lego. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah.
And he made this little Cybertruck that he gifted me the other
wow.
day. So I mean, he's so passionate. I mean, he sees me working. He tries his very best to keep me excited, cheerful, and I try to do my best. So I think family brings it home all the time, and I think it was a fantastic episode 21. What do you guys think?
I think
so
man.
too.
I'm literally tearing up, man. Like, this is not a typical episode. Man, like, you know, it's hard, and I think we need to really acknowledge that for the entrepreneurs out there. We see you. The reason this show exists is because we are not immune from the hard. We are not immune from the hard. Man, when my like 1.5-year-old son comes down here on a podcast night that I've been working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, and he's banging on the door saying, "Dada, dada," you know, like, we're all suffering. Yeah. We're all struggling our way through it. it's not easy, but if it was, it wouldn't be worth it. I think that that's maybe the important way to end this show today, is that
Yeah.
you have to pick your hard.
Yeah, choose your hard, right?
Choose your heart. Yeah,
Because business
there we
is
go.
hard. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's episode 21. Next week,
Congratulations,
we'd love
guys.
to have
That's
you
a big
back on
deal.
22
22.
because 22 means we made it. So hopefully we see you next Wednesday.
No, we're not wrapping it up in 21. We didn't just make it.
Come next week. Come back next week.
All right. Thanks,
Later,
everybody.
hustlers.
Later.